Awesome. Awesome. Well, man, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you doing this.
No, I appreciate you having me. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So, man, same thing I start out with everybody, man. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. What?
Oh gosh, uh, I don't know. I mean, someone said an expensive bottle of booze there in the comments, Doctor Kayak. I think that pretty much sums it up. No, I'm just kidding. No, I guess kayak fishing history is what I'll get in, like
Yeah.
share. Um, been kayak fishing for probably about 15 years or so, and spent about 12 of those years as an employee slash team member for Jackson Kayak. So been in the industry for a bit and kind of finished up my career with Jackson as the brand manager of fishing, and then went full time chasing the. My dog's barking. Sorry about
Well, we
that.
got three of them here, so you may hear them here.
Yeah, spent the last 3 years chasing the road trip angler as kind of the my passion's always been to share kayak fishing and just getting on the water with others and as you do with your channel as well, and having that opportunity to do that through the road trip angler has been awesome. So that's
Nice.
kind of been my focus over the last couple of years.
Nice, man. Tell me a little bit about your time with Jackson. I mean, that's kind of where I came to know of you from. Obviously, we're a Jackson dealer among other things, but uh, what's it like? So, obviously, me being in the paddle shop, the retail part of it, what would you say would be the biggest maybe misconception about a kayak manufacturer?
Well, I'll say, because I worked retail before I
Mhm.
actually started working for Jackson at a dealer that was a Jackson dealer, which is what led me to working at Jackson. It was a Great Outdoor Provision Company, which has several locations in North Carolina and Virginia. And what led me to Jackson actually was the community feel of it, the family feel of it, and the fact that I was a river angler, and I felt like Jackson at the time was one of the only brands making a river specific fishing kayak.
Yeah,
And so that led me to Jackson, and then I just kind of fell in love with the family aspect, the community aspect of it.
nice.
And being on that side of it, being on the dealer side of it, and then also being on the brand side of it, I guess the misconception would be is like you don't realize, I guess, how hard a brand actually tries to really connect with the consumers.
Yeah,
And being on both sides, like I realized, like honestly, like Jackson's just a bunch of users that is really trying to make the best product that they could for the people that would use that product, because that's ultimately what we all were, is
yeah,
users of the product and fans of the sport. And sometimes you know what you're doing and sometimes you don't, and you might not have the business sense always, but you have the passion. And so
yeah.
that's one of the things that I thought was interesting at Jackson is, it was a very passionate brand and a very passionate company to work for. And whether it was the whitewater side or the fishing side, like everyone were actual users, and doers of the sport. And
Okay.
so I think people think when they outside looking in, you think that it's just a bunch of people kind of pushing pencils or whatever. But no, sometimes the problem is we're actually out on the water when we should be pushing pencils.
Yeah, and speaking from the retail side of it, which you're familiar with, you know, we hear, why are they so expensive, or why, and I always tell people every company has maybe missed the mark a few times, and that's kind
Oh,
of
100%.
really, yeah, that's kind of really what gets you to where you want to go. You miss, you learn, and then you move on. And in a lot of the, I think pretty much every manufacturer that we deal with, you kind of see that natural progression of things. So, you'll
Right.
see similarities from the things you did right in the past moving forward, and maybe, hey, what if we did this, or what if we did that?
Well, and I mean, that's the mark of a good brand, but it's also, I mean, it's a mark of a good human, right? Like if
Yeah,
we can't learn from our mistakes and make changes and adapt, then I mean, failure is not a bad thing.
no,
Failure
no,
is it's consistent failure is a bad thing,
yeah,
but failing and then figuring it out is a good thing. And you do that and you learn and you try to grow. And I've just always been a fan of the industry as a whole. And I landed at Jackson because, again, river fishing thing,
Yeah.
my background. But I've always, been a fan of several of the brands that you carry. And it's just been cool, I think, for me, from the perspective of just seeing the industry as a whole and being able to say that I've spent the last decade, more than a decade, in the industry and seeing brands like Bonafide come about that didn't exist when I started and grow, and then seeing brands like New Canoe, who have always, I felt like, really stayed true to their roots and done a really good job of developing new product, but in their own, space. And Hobie, I mean, just, I don't know, man. I'm a overall fan of good brands and what they have been able to accomplish throughout the years.
And I'm the same way. So that's the thing was, uh,
For so much stuff now.
we're definitely on, especially with the Jackson side of things. Um, in the overall industry, in my opinion, and I've gone over this in some videos, but it's in a constant state of evolution and transition now because COVID's over, and I think everybody kind of had their own challenges during that time, whether it be with supply chain or quality issues and whatnot. And that was one thing. And again, we got us a new rep for Jackson, so kind of get to know him. But that was one thing that I've definitely communicated a lot was, in my opinion, Jackson kind of pioneered the river and creek fishing industry as a whole. And that's kind of where I grew up doing on the Buffalo National River is, I had an old aluminum flat bottom with the oars attached to it. That's what I fished out of primarily. And now, like, the things that are out now just astonish me. I think we're just scratching the surface, honestly. Um, but with Jackson too, now correct me if I'm wrong. Now you had part of the hand with the Coosa X.
Yeah, so the Coosa X was a boat. We had, obviously, the Coosa is, I mean, that is
Yes.
Jackson, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what led me to Jackson, actually, was the Coosa. So it was really cool to be an angler and a fan of the brand. I mean, you gotta think about this, and like, I think about this, and it humbles me every day. But, like, so I go from being a fan of just like fishing, right?
Yeah.
And then I bought actually a Wilderness Systems Commander 120, which was not a riverboat in any sense of the word. Not a bad boat,
Yeah.
not a riverboat. And I sunk it like 3 or 4 times on the river, to the point where I actually drilled a hole in the bottom of the boat and put a plug in it like you would have in a basket, right? And that a way I could get the water out of it once I could get it to shore with a couple of friends helping. Um, and so I started the whole thing, like Googling, like river fishing kayak, best river fishing kayak, like just trying to figure out, like, okay, obviously this is not the boat for me or for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they were developing with Drew the Coosa, and I had never heard of Jackson. I didn't know anything about them. So I'm like, seeing that they are a whitewater company, and seeing that here's Drew Gregory, who has kind of pioneered river fishing from a kayak with a lot of ocean kayaks and stuff that he was using back in the day, and he's teamed up with Jackson to create this boat that they were going to call the Coosa.
Mm.
And so it led me to basically going to the dealer that I ended up working for part time, and putting some money down and going, I want one of these boats when they become available. And so I ended up with one of the first Coosas, that was, as soon as they were available, the dealer had them. I had one, and I fell in love with just the aspect of, like, here's a boat that was designed specifically for not only kayak fishing but a specific type of kayak fishing.
Yeah.
So when they came out with the Cuda, I jumped on board. I'm like, all right, well, they nailed that. I feel like it's allowed me to do the thing that I wanted to do better than any other boat that I've had, and I jumped on board. And so when talking about pioneered, like, I really do feel like Hobie was a pioneer in it, and Jackson was a pioneer, and Wilderness Systems too. But, like,
Yeah.
when it came to specifically fishing for certain things or in certain types of waterways, Hobie really did a good job, and then Jackson was right there on the forefront as well. And I think that's what led me, to the brand in the beginning was my kayak fishing roots were river fishing, and they made a river fishing specific kayak,
Yeah.
and that really led me to them and to the brand.
That's interesting because I think, and with both of us, kayak kayak fishing really kind of got us onto the lake. So it was almost a reverse. Uh,
It was
I
100%.
yeah, I
You're right.
grew up fishing on rivers, bank fishing, wading down creeks, and we're blessed around here to have some really good smallmouth fisheries and trout fisheries, obviously. But
I'm gonna need you to drop a pin and send that to me, and then I'll.
yeah, well, some of those spots, but yeah, I mean, we I've been doing it for so long that getting on the lake was a little different, and we actually we looked into, before I was managing OMTC here, that maybe looking at a boat, getting a boat, getting out there, kind of getting to some of them spots, and an old friend of mine that I went to high school with, he lived here in Mountain Home, and I remember seeing, like, this is like 10 years ago, well, actually more than that. Picture of him standing up on a kayak, and he had rods sticking straight up, and he started with Wilderness. I want to say he had the ride, the longer ride. I made
Right.
but and I'm like, well, that's just weird, because when I think of kayaks at the time, I'm thinking of them long kazoo looking plastic sit-ins where you just kind of piddle around there, and then well, COVID hit. I was in the insurance industry, and we did the same thing. I mean, we did that stereotypical thing that every single person did with a little bit of free time is, we went to this place, we saw kayaks standing out, and I'm like, that looks like fun. We should look into that. And we knew we live here in Cotter, so OMTC's got the store here, and we went down there and we got a couple of kayaks. We're one of the few that kind of started out quality. I got the Ride 115, and then she got
Yeah.
the Perception Pescador 10, and we were starting out just kind of wanting to go recreation, just float around, explore around.
Yeah.
Literally, the first time we went out, I had a fishing pole with me, and then told us, like, man, this is nice to fish off of. I mean, this, we're getting into some really, really really shallow areas and small areas that you couldn't really get with anything else. And then, you know, long story short, a year later, I'm managing the store now that we bought it from, and then I texted her after a few weeks of, like, I told her, like, you have no idea the scope of these fishing kayaks.
Right.
So the first fishing kayak I bought was a Frontier 12, the new canoe. I saw the swivel seat, and I'm like, this is insane. It's huge. It's open deck. And then she kind of came along with me on it. She got the Jackson U pick, and it's rest is history. And now we've kind of transitioned back to going on the rivers and creeks, and
we flip flop a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's interesting. I mean, that is it, right? So I was in Florida, and I had a boat, and I moved back to my hometown here in North Carolina, where I'm at right now. And I sold the boat, knowing that, most what I have around here available is small lakes, rivers. And I was, had a saltwater boat, center console. And so we got rid of it, and we came back, and immediately I'm like trying to wade fish these rivers, and I'm like, this is not the right way to do this. Canoe wasn't the right way to do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
We found kayaks, right? And again, this was before the Coosa. This was, and we had, my buddy got a Tarpon 120, and I got the Commander, and I got my wife a Tarpon 100, which is the Pescador that you probably have is actually the same hull as the old Tarpon 100. And so that's what we had. And I realized so quickly the just the versatility of these tiny plastic boats,
Yeah.
and it was like, holy crap. Like, yeah, I can go down the river in it, but I can also go back to Florida where I had my boat and probably access water that I couldn't even access into my boat and catch the same fish. And, it wasn't, many years later when I was with Drew and Brooks and a couple of Jackson team members, and we're offshore in Pensacola where I used to live and had the boat. And here I am fighting a wahoo from a big tuna,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, holy crap, like I would never have done that in my boat because I would have drove right past where that fish was.
Yeah.
I would have thought, we got to go way out or whatever. And I think that, getting, like you said, getting in a kayak for the first time just opened so many doors. And it was like, wait a minute, this is a very useful tool to access so much water. And also just the ability to throw it in the back of a truck or throw it on the roof of a car and travel to water wherever, and be able to take that same boat that you could float the river and catch smallmouth in, and then go red fishing on a flat, 6 or 7 hours or 8 hours away. I think that, I don't know, it just lit a passion in me. It lit like this fire in me, and it was like, I got to tell everybody about this thing. Like this is such a useful thing and such a tool and such an adventure that like anyone can go on. And so it's just been like, like you said, the rest is history, right? Like you get in it and you're like, wait a minute, this thing is ridiculous. Like we got to share this with everybody.
Yeah. And one of the things him and I were having the conversation the other day, because we were bank fishing just because he was getting off work at 6, I was getting off work around the same time. And so we're like, we just kind of want to throw and go. So we were bank fishing. We're all like, man, there's nothing like kayak fishing. There really isn't.
There isn't. I mean, it gives you that, you're in command of your own little space, right? Like this is it. It's total chaos. Like it is. It can be complete chaos and ridiculous, and you love it at the same time.
Yeah. We've definitely been in some chaos. Yeah. that was kind of what that sucked me into the whole motorized thing, was the fact that we were out there at a local lake access. We're fishing a little tournament, and there was just the wind. It reminded me of offshore, like in the bays, and just really choppy. And we're paddling around. We get into a little cove there, and we're fishing and coming back. And anybody watching this can attest to this: is the amount of people that fish. You're paddling into the wind to get to your spot. Our dogs are barking from your dogs. You're paddling into your spot into the wind, and then you fish there for several hours, and then when you come back, you're paddling into the wind to get back to your spot.
You're always into the wind. It doesn't matter if you're going downriver, upriver, you're always into the wind.
And 100%. We experienced that this last Sunday when we went out, and it was just like, I've got a Hobie Lynx that I use on the lake. He was in the PWR with a motor on it, just kind of testing it out, and man, just trying to stay in one spot was so much work.
Well, what you're talking about there is so interesting because it's a thing that I really have kind of talked about a lot on the show, is boat position.
Yeah.
And boat position is, I don't care if you're in a big skiff, you're in a small boat, you're in a kayak, whatever it is, like that is the key, right? Being able to maintain boat position. And that's where the motorized thing, like some people are, get it up in arms about, well, why don't you just get a boat? You got a motor or whatever. It's like, you have no idea. Like being able to control a boat, even if it's a small boat, like boat position is how you're able to catch fish.
Yeah.
If you can maintain boat position where it needs to be and get your bait in that strike zone, and it's a challenge. And so I'm all for motors, because I don't know about you guys, but I got into kayak fishing to access water where I could actually get to fish.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can put a motor on the back of that kayak and do that better, then, I'm in.
See,
I didn't get into kayak fishing to kayak. I got into kayak fishing to fish.
See, and I'm the lazy one that just grabs onto his boat because he's got the motor. So I'm like,
why not? Why not? That's the way to go. And so I have a PWR, by the way, and I'm curious. I wanted to ask you, because you've had some time in it. Mm-hmm. I'm about to put it through its paces. I'm going to do a whole series on different motors, actually using the PWR as kind of the catalyst, like the boat that I'm going to put the Bixby, put the Torpedo and the Newport, and just swap them out. But I've heard really good things. I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to actually get on the water because we've been so busy wrapping up a couple of episodes. But next week and then the following weeks, my plan is to get the PWR out, but I've heard really good things. I love the layout of it, just seeing it on land.
Yeah.
How are you liking it?
I love it. It's so there's there I love something about every kayak. So
Right.
and
It's so
that's
hard to choose, right?
I always tell people that come into the store, working in that store does not help the
No,
sickness. It actually
no.
makes it worse because there's always something new and improved coming out, or you hear about products before they've been announced. I'm like, oh my god. And I remember, so I did a reaction video to iCast. So iCast, you had Old Town had the EPDL Plus, Bonafide had the Skiff, and Native had the Titan X. And so I'm like, okay, Old Town coming out with some innovation, which in my opinion they kind of needed to do. They've been it's been comfortable there for a long time with the Sportsman series, and rightfully so, they make a quality kayak. And but the Skiff, I thought it was like, oh, that's really interesting. They had the RVR the day, the year before, and literally, like, I just got done doing a video showing the New Canoe Unlimited versus the SS 127, and talking about value right out of the box. And if the SS 127 had this, it'd make a little difference. I felt like the ceiling was a little higher on the Unlimited. Literally, like 2 weeks after I put that video out, they came out with the announcement of the PWR, and I'm like, holy
Right.
crap! Like, this is everything. You got front hatch
Yeah.
storage, you got a foot controlled rudder, foot controlled steering from the factory, and so I'm sitting there thinking, and then the price was like $100 more than Unlimited, but you got $600 or $700 worth of features on
Yeah.
there. So I thought the value is really good, and I feel like that's where the entire industry is transitioning at. Is we're going a little bit more to value based because the prices aren't going to go
Right.
down, but you're going to get more for what you're paying for there.
Yeah, and anytime you can mold that into the
Yeah.
boat, it's not, I mean, again, I am not at Jackson anymore, but that was one of the things when I was there. I'm like, you had to think about, like, if you could mold in features, those are, I don't want to say free, but a whole lot cheaper than
Yeah.
bolting on or adding accessories,
Yeah.
right? And so I think they did a really good job of thinking about what they could do and mold into the boat, and be able to actually make it add value to the boat without actually adding cost to the boat.
Yeah.
And that is the challenge. I mean, like, when we came out with the tri-track, and I still stand, I think the tri-track is one of the coolest, like, innovations that Jackson, like, that we came out with in a long time. But it adds a lot of cost. Like, we have to get this track. I remember one of the things that I fought for was actually bending it to actually match the shape of the boat.
Yeah.
And it costs to have a piece of metal made to a certain shape and extrusion that you want, and then also bend it to the shape of your hull.
Yeah.
And while it has this really big cool factor, it adds cost to the boat. And I just thought that Bonafide has always done a really good job of, like, utilizing what they could mold into the boat, and in that value. And speaking about New Canoe as well, like, I'm paddling a Pursuit right now, and that boat's been out for a very long time, and I think they've always done a really good job of building the features into the hull. Like we did at Jackson, like back with the Kusa and the Cuda, like utilizing the plastic and the mold itself to add those features.
Yeah.
The added value. The thing that you can't plan for is companies like Yak Attack
Yeah.
come out with all these new, awesome, innovative accessories, and you're like, okay, now we just have to make it adaptable to that.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, like, mold it into our boat, how can we make it more adaptable to the things that are existing, and let those people really have the innovation and drive the innovation when it comes to the things that are going to bolt on and work on the kayak. So it's been interesting. I saw Fluke Master. I appreciate that,
Yeah.
because I do like rocking a flat bill.
I'm not that guy. I'm just kudos to you. I can't do it.
I just have so many hats. Like,
Yeah.
literally, like, everyone says you wear a lot of hats. Like, I have a lot of hats, and this is no joke. My wife is very clutter free. Eli, my friend that's sitting beside me, can attest to this. his wife does the same thing, but she will take stuff to the Goodwill and buy stuff from the Goodwill also.
Yeah.
And I have actually found my own hats at our local Goodwill.
Find some of your own
Very cool.
gear.
It's true, absolutely 100% true. My mom has bought my hats and give them back to me for Christmas.
Oh wow. See,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a rarity. I've got a size 8 head. So
Well, I have a very small head, but for whatever reason, I can rock a flat bill.
yeah,
I'm right
there's
there.
not a lot of hats that I can wear.
He's got a big head.
I'm right there with you,
Okay,
brother.
thank you. This hat was
This was 7/8, but most time it's in between there and 8. So I'm right there with you.
yeah.
I have to special order his hat.
This comes from a company that makes bigger hats and they flex, and this actually fits loose on me. So this is like one of the first hats. I'll wear this till it's white.
They ain't nothing like it, man.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I wear a size 7 cowboy hat.
Oh wow.
That's and I'm 6 foot tall and weigh 225-ish pounds. So believe it or not, like I have a very small head.
You got the little man syndrome. That's what it is.
to be.
But she wears the hats that I can't wear. So, if a manufacturer comes by and gives us some hats, and I just look at it, I'm like, God, that's a really cool hat.
I wish I could wear it.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm utilizing all the little bumps on the back.
I have to do the same.
Even when I was a teenager, the snapback hats, like the little strap is just holding on for dear life to those final 2 buttons.
Yep.
Hey, I had a good question here from Fishing the Mid-South. And
I saw that. I wondered if you want me to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, I will. And I think you're right. I mean, I think, and speaking of, the other YouTubers that are out there, I think, here's being again at Jackson for over 12 years. The challenge was, okay, here you have a company that was super innovative.
Yeah.
With the Coosa, with the Cuda, and really leading the charge. One of the companies leading the charge when it came to kayak fishing specific kayaks. And then all of a sudden you have Old Town, you have, all these other brands that are doing it and doing a good job of it. Whether they're copying, the high-low seed or they're copying rod staging, whatever it is. I mean, innovation is going to lead to people, I don't want to say knocking it off, but like they're going to take things that are working and they're going to, get their take on it, change it, modify it, whatever. And then it becomes this game of like, oh crap, you've got this pressure on you of like, you have to innovate now. Like you were innovative, but now everyone else is caught up. And now what do you do? And so you have this like pressure, and then add the fact that kayak fishing blew up. There's all these new brands. You can go to Walmart, you can go to Tractor Supply, and you can see a kayak that has rod stagers and rod holders and a high-low external frame seat. And it's $500. And you're looking at all that, and you've got the market is flooded. And now I'm talking about like 2015. This is pre-COVID, right? So you got this 2008, 2009, like boom in kayak fishing. I mean, huge boom. People are innovative. Brands are innovative. Hobie's got the Pro Angler that's come out. Their Outback's been out for a while. New Canoe's doing stuff like the Pursuit. Jackson's coming out with the Coosa and the Cuda. There's really no pedal drives on the market other than the Hobie pedal drive. So you've got a lot of cool things happening, right? And it's booming. But then, like, fast forward to 2015, now you got a lot of pedal drives hitting the market in that 2015, 2016, 2017. A lot of pedal drives. It's almost like this flooded market happens.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to like go, okay, like what's next? Where do we go from here? And you go from being an innovator to almost like chasing the industry. Yeah. And like, where do we go? Where do we do? And so, there's some truth in what's being said that I don't want to say that Jackson like lost its innovation, but it's like, I mean, it's a small business. It's a small family-owned company still to this day. And it's like, you don't always know what's going to be the right decision, and what's going to be the wrong decision. And then add COVID.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're coming out of that. They're coming out of this boom where you're leading to like, oh my gosh, there's so many things on the market, to here's COVID. Like throw that into the mix. And you're like, well, now everything we can make is sold, but you know that's not going to last, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know that's going to come to an end. And, when I came in as the brand manager and I'd been there for a long time, the goal was to create a better pedal drive kayak, which is why we attacked the market with the NAR. But we struggle with plastic issues, which Hobie has as well.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot of the supply chain stuff. But the Coosa X, I think we really did a great job of utilizing our team and listening to what they wanted to see, that evolution of the Coosa itself and the river fishing boat, and really focusing back on the roots of like designing a boat around a very specific style of fishing in a very specific area of fishing, which was river fishing.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to make a blanket boat that was good for everybody, or because that's hard to do, right?
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're on a river, it's very different than if you're on flat water, And so anyway, like, I don't know if there's a good answer to that question, but I will say that it is a focus. And even though I'm not there anymore, I still know the people that are running the R&D department and running the marketing department. And Jackson has always focused on trying to be innovative and figure out what it is to make a quality product, because they're users ultimately of that product. And I don't think any of the brands out there would sit here and tell you, like, we just want to make $1.
Yeah.
Like that isn't the focus.
There's
the
no ivory towers in the paddle sports industry.
No.
Not in the specialty retail spot. Maybe in the box store like area, but like I don't care if it's New Canoe, Jackson, Hobie, Old Town, like they all want to make a good product.
Yeah.
They want to make a product that they can stand behind and that people will want to buy and use and have years of great experiences out of it. And so, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
I think it
does.
I
mean, it is an up and down.
Yeah.
It's
a moving.
It's not this. It's moving, and you're trying to find that target. You're trying to hit that target, and you want to do good. You want to come out like you all want to deliver a good product.
It's definitely a moving goalpost.
Right.
And I've been critical of Jackson this last year, but not to a point where I don't think they're bad. It's just, but when you look at, say, Bonafide and Native, even so, Bonafide, you can make the argument before last year they've been stagnant for a few years. They had the SS series, which was a good kayak,
all around kayak.
Yeah, but then they come out with the RVR, then they come out with the PWR, and then they make some changes, and they're kind of them and Native, and they're kind of at the top this year as far as innovation. But
the PWR is definitely like, I mean, when I saw it come out, I was still at Jackson. I'm like, holy crap! And I called Hans, who designed that boat, and I was like, man, congrats, that thing is awesome. And it's cool to see that, you wonder, like, how can kayaks continue to innovate?
Yeah.
But it's cool to see that they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they keep changing and modifying, and how people are using them today is not how people used them 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But people are still using them today the way they used them 10, 12 years ago. And it's like, you can't forget that. You can't, as a brand or whatever, you can't forget that people still just want to go paddle a simple kayak and take a rod or two. But you also can't neglect the fact that people are putting dual Garmin, 12-inch screens on it with live scope, $4,000 motors on the back of it, and so what do you do? I mean, it's.
And I think sometimes we get lost in, we're looking for the next best thing, right? Mm. And like he was saying, like Bonafides, they came out with the RVR, they came out with the SKF, with the PWR. It seems like the kayak industry, there's different brands that are innovating at different times. And I think some of the small innovations we kind of overlook. Like, one of the things that I think of is the high-low seating that Jackson does now compared to 2020, 2021. I have the U-pick with the old system where you
Yeah.
would have to pick up the seat and, set it into the high position or in the low
Which
position.
came out in 2009. Like,
And,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
and so like that new system is a game changer, right? So, but that's like,
Oh,
it's one thing, but I think sometimes we get lost in that, in those small,
right.
in the things that are small.
Really don't matter what you do, man.
You're absolutely right. And that comment that you have posted there from Kelly, I mean, it is this competition, really. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it's what's led me to inflatable kayaks. I mean, you and I and Wendell did that collaboration where we kind of did our like most overlooked or whatever we called it. I can't remember.
Check those
Underrated,
videos
criminally
out, by the way.
do what?
I just tell people, check those videos out, by the way. Those are really good.
Yeah, no, but it was great because it
Yeah.
is that like there things get overlooked as you're talking about like innovation, but and you almost like you're looking for that newest thing, and sometimes you forget about the simplicity in some of the things, and like inflatable kayaks, like to me are this overlooked category in general, and being able to take a 35-pound kayak that can do almost everything that your
Pretty much.
80-pound, 85-pound kayak can do, and some things better. It's like, you know what? Like maybe this is a pretty good option. And so anyway, it's what are you laughing at?
We could have went up a dang river even further.
Oh no,
Maybe
yeah, we
did.
took a full blown 18-foot skiff and put chips in the bottom of it and knocked a skeg off a trolling motor today. So I mean, there's definitely something to be said about like thinking about the simplicity of it and not getting caught up in all the new things that come out. But also there's little nuances that change, like the high-low seating and how it's evolved and how it's been made easier. Different brands have come up with different ways to do that are really cool.
Locking.
So I don't know where the sport's going. I feel like you have this two paths, like back to simplicity, and then also like everything you can possibly put on a boat. It's like, wow, you should just buy a boat. Like it's starting to be like, I used to like be on that fence of like, I will argue that till the day I die, when someone would say you should just buy a boat and be like, you're out of your mind. Like I could never buy a boat for this. But now you see $20,000 Hobies rigged out, and you're like, well, maybe you could just buy.
I see them on Marketplace all the time. And it's somebody trying to get $8,000 out of their Hobie setup, and I mean, I don't doubt they put that much money into it, but I've said this and I've communicated this to manufacturers, our reps, but I think that we're going to start to see a little bit of a pivot back to simplicity.
I think you have to. I think because it has to ride itself, right? I mean, it does. And I'm not saying that you won't have. There's not room at the top.
Oh no, not at all.
There's definitely room at the top for that. Like a PWR can be simple, or it can be completely rigged out.
Yeah.
And I think that's smart because like people are moving towards motors, and that is the hands down easiest kayak to rig with a motor right now on the market. And I think that is the right direction versus like, you got a pedal drive that can also have a motor, which is what we did with the NAR. And it's like, well, at the time, that's what people were doing, and what they wanted. And it's like, but I think there's still something to be said about having a strong like Coosa or even the new canoe like the Flint or the Pursuit, which I really am a fan of, or an Old Town or whatever, just a simple boat. The what do you call it? Throw and go. Throw in the back of your truck.
Lightweight.
And that's what I love about the inflatable boats. That they're so lightweight. Throw them in the back of your truck. Beat them up. Drag them. Whatever.
So I'd watched your videos and a few others before. We had a guy that was kind of maybe someone from the outside kind of helping us out, and he wanted me to do a video on the NRS CUDA. And so she went with me, and we took it down to a lake access, and I took my Black Pack Pro, took my fishing rod. I'm like, okay, well, just really try this. And then I'm sitting there looking at this thing. I'm like, wow, like you got a frame seat, you have locking foot pegs on an inflatable,
and a platform.
And
Just a
yeah, and I saw like and it's light, so I'm so used to lugging these heavy kayaks and throwing like both of us just lugging them into the back of this truck, and it was so refreshing to just grab the handle in the middle, throw it in the water, put my Blackpack Pro, and go.
Yeah.
And the way that handled surprised me. So it felt stable. It was very maneuverable. I like the fact that it comes with the little fin, and you could get the smaller fin if you're wanting to
Yeah,
do
you gotta get the
something.
small
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
and because when somebody sees a inflatable, they're thinking, well, that's not going to handle the rivers. Like I told them, like, no, this is made the same way you see stuff going down the Colorado River on,
Yeah.
banging up against rocks. It's a fishing platform, and I think it gets overshadowed by every fishing kayak on the market. But I always tell
Yeah.
people, if you allowed yourself open mind to get on that and mess around with it, I think you'd be really surprised.
Yeah, and I think it's the same. I mean, it's an education
Yeah.
situation with like people are nervous about an inflatable kayak
Mhm.
that are new to kayaks, right?
Yeah.
Like people that came from the rafting or whitewater, they know that inflatable boats have been around for years and they're durable. But like you and I, like we come from fishing to kayaking.
Yeah.
We didn't come from kayaking to fishing, and so like you look at these polyethylene rotomolded kayaks and you think they're really durable, and they are, but like there are other durable options out there that exist, like these inflatable kayaks. And the other thing is like thermoform boats. Like
Yeah.
people think thermoform boats are super, like they're gonna break or crack or whatever, but they're actually another lightweight option.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. I think that we're going to see. I think that is one of the things we're going to see. Talking about innovation, I think over the next few years, we're going to see a lot of the things that we see in the polyethylene and rotomotor boats go into inflatables and into thermoform kayaks that are going to be lighter, because that's the struggle, right?
Yeah.
The more of this stuff we put on these kayaks, the heavier they get. So, okay, how do we keep that innovation but make it to where we get back to having that lightweight throw and go, load in the back of your truck, on the roof of your car, whatever kayak? And I think it's inflatables and thermoform kayaks versus rotomotor.
And with the inflatables, one of the things I remember, because I first had a paddleboard, and it was an inflatable paddleboard, and the first time that he had ever been introduced to an inflatable was on that paddleboard, and he's like, I'm like surprised at how thick and sturdy this thing is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's the big thing. I think it's just education, because I know whenever we've got customers that come in and feel those inflatables, they're just like, this is a lot sturdier than I was
They
expecting.
didn't think it's inflatable.
They're thinking about, you go to Walmart and you buy this inflatable
Yeah.
raft or whatever,
Mhm.
or what. It's not the same
Or the-
technology,
or
right?
the
That
full
drop
mattress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that drop sticks technology is so crazy. So Sea Eagle sent me an inflatable skiff, the Fish Skiff 16, and it's rated for a 9.9 and 3 people.
Wow.
And no frame,
Yeah.
there's no metal frame. It's 100% an inflatable like boat, and you can inflate it to 15 psi. And it's the whole thing is drop stitch, and I'm setting it up in the driveway the last couple of days. I have not had it on the water,
Mhm.
but I mean, you walk around on it, and it is like this thing feels like a rigid like boat. I mean,
Yeah.
it is solid, and so I'm really excited. I mean, this is again a 16-foot skiff with I got a 5 horsepower on it, but you can put up to a 9.9 on it. And like I'm walking around and I'm like, this thing is like being on a full blown boat. I mean, it's solid. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So Uncle David Outdoors is asking, what is your favorite river to fish on? That's
hard
like
one.
picking one of your kids, isn't it?
Well, I mean, obviously, I live again here in North Carolina, and like, and it's not because it's a better river than other rivers, but like the New River, we have the North and South Fork of the New River both start in North Carolina.
Mhm.
They flow into Virginia. They dip back. They come together. They dip back in to North Carolina and then go into Virginia.
River
And so I
goes north.
Yeah, and it flows north. So it's a very unique river in the sense that where I live, all the rivers end up in the Atlantic. The New River ends up in the Gulf because it flows north, ends up in the Ohio, eventually into the Tennessee, the Mississippi, and goes into the Gulf.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool, just that aspect of it, the fact that it flows the opposite direction of every other river that we have here. It's kind of neat, and it has smallmouth bass. So
Ooh.
it definitely has a special place in my heart. And we just actually filmed an episode here where I took my wife and my dad fishing. So they'll be on the television episode, fishing the New River. So it's just, as far as favorite rivers go, it's not. We had a very good trip the last couple of days that we went out there, but I wouldn't say that I've had as good, if not better, trips on other rivers.
Yeah.
But it's because of that. This is where I started kayak fishing. It's my home waters.
It's unique.
It's unique in the fact that it again flows north, ends up in the Gulf of Mexico versus all the other rivers we have here that end up in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So that's my favorite river, and it has smallmouth bass, and I've actually caught a striper in it. It has muskie, largemouth, spotted bass. So I mean, it's just a really cool fishery.
I'm gonna ask you an extension question. What's your favorite fish to go fishing for?
Okay, so that's I got two species, and it is smallmouth bass. Like that is my freshwater species, and I've caught giant striper. Luckily, we were up in Maryland a few weeks ago, and Jeff Little and I caught some big striper. There you go. There's the comment. Yeah, massive striper. And I keep coming back to smallmouth. I just absolutely love river smallmouth. They fight hard. They are mean. I mean, you guys know they're mean, and they don't give up. And they're beautiful. They're colored up. I mean, I love them.
Yeah.
And the second one is redfish. And I've caught all kinds of saltwater fish. I've been fortunate. I've caught sailfish, I've caught marlin, I've caught tuna, wahoo, roosterfish. I mean, I've caught all kinds of saltwater species. I keep coming back to redfish because of the being able to sight fish them and see them and cast to them, watch them react to your bait, and then eat it or not eat it, or whatever it is that they do. That interaction that you get and feedback that you get, like
you learn a lot.
Oh, you learn so much, and not just about red fishing, but about fishing in general. You learn about the fact that like just because you can't see the fish doesn't mean they're not there, and seeing a fish react to your bait. I mean, today we were out on a lake and we went up the river, super clear water, and we were seeing the fish just straight up refuse, like completely ignore everything we were throwing out.
Yeah.
And so that's the cool thing I think about redfish, and I see Fluke Master put redfish too. So, but it's just that instant feedback that you get, and how many opportunities. I mean, redfish are just they're available, right? Like from Maryland all the way down and around to Texas, like every state has them. So, those are my two: smallmouth bass, redfish.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. When we met, we kind of got our start in largemouth, and there's something that it's very similar to what you said about the river that you liked. So me, it's the Buffalo River, and a lot of people love the Buffalo, but me, it was, the first fish I ever caught was out of the Buffalo. The first everything I did in water was at the Buffalo River because we live so close to it. And there's probably better fisheries. There's probably better, I can't imagine there's a lot of better places to go, but that's what I keep going to. It's the first nationally protected river, and just being in the wilderness, no matter where you come from, there's people come all over the country to go there, and we're fortunate enough to have it pretty much in our backyard and be able to access it. But the smallmouth, absolutely. We went, how long ago? Crooked Creek down there. I think
it was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. No, just down there. That one where we got that one on the bed.
That was this week.
Yeah, that was this week. We went there and we were doing a delivery, and then we just stopped by, and I've got my Yakima topwater box, and I think that's just, we've got to have that because there's so many times we're on the road and you see that little body of water. It's like, man, that looks really fishy.
You got to stop.
So we pulled over and we literally saw 3 smallies just kind of going, bedding. And it's like, well, I'm not too, I know about largemouth, but I'm not too keen on the bedding patterns of smallies. And I was like, man, that's neat. So I'm taking a lure and I'm just kind of pitching it across there, just seeing what, and he look at it and he's going around. And then, like you were saying, learning, just changing a color presentation or a different kind of lure and going across it. And he just slams it. And, but yeah, my screensaver on my phone's a smallmouth. So that's one of my favorites. Absolutely.
They're just mean. Shoal bass are up there, and they're, the problem with them is that they're only located in a very small geographical region, where a smallmouth are spread out. But any fish that is fighting river current constantly, and that you can chase after, I love it. With redfish, I'll share a story. You're talking about changing patterns, and this is one of the reasons I really love them. But it's also kind of a sucky thing too. Me and my buddy Brooks, which Fluke Master's on here watching, so he knows Brooks, and he may have actually been on this trip. I can't remember who all was there, but he was on some of these early trips that we took to Louisiana, and we were filming for Jackson, and we were out there, and Brooks and I took the same bait out of the same pack and put it on a hook. It was a Streaks 5-inch. It was 5-inch paddlers, Z-Man paddlers, out of the pack. We got steaks going on the grill behind me.
Nice.
But anyway, we're doing that. Don't put them on there. Let's turn.
You don't want to throw them on the smoke?
No, turn that up right there.
Tell him.
Yeah, you gotta check on this guy. We take the same baits out of the same pack, and we're fishing, and I'm catching fish and he's not.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like I'm catching fish over here and he's catching fish over there. We're casting at the same fish.
Yeah.
Literally the same fish. And it is turning his bait down and eating my bait. And at one point I remember he was just like, whatever, just have a good day. And he picks up the camera and he's like, I'm gonna film, you photograph, you catch fish, I'm gonna film. But at the end of the day, we laid our baits out and we're like, what was the difference? Why were you catching fish and I wasn't? And I had a 1/16 ounce weighted hook, and he had a 1/8 ounce weighted hook.
Oh, wow.
And that was the difference. Same bait, same hooks, other than the weight, same leader.
Yeah.
Everything was the same. But whatever it was about the fall of his bait,
rate,
fall of my bait, I was getting bit, and he wasn't. And I'm talking literally the same fish were turning his bait down and eating my lure.
Man.
And that's the feedback that you get when you can actually see a fish. When you can see a fish in the water and cast to it and watch them eat, that is it.
So Dr. Kayak, and he's actually probably one of my original subscribers. And I know he's got a Bite FD that he's got the E-Drive for, and I'm somewhat versed in the E-Drive, and I think I know the answer to this, but I just kind of wanted to get your take on this. What made Jackson kind of go away from the E-Drive?
The fact that we didn't build it.
Okay.
So we were reliant on a company to build the electric motor for us, and they couldn't do it.
Okay.
They couldn't. They could do it. They couldn't do it consistently, and they couldn't service the drives when we needed them to service them. So, we're stuck here not being the manufacturer because we made plastic boats. We didn't make motors. It's the same thing with the pedal drive. We designed it, but we didn't manufacture it in-house, because we had ovens to make rotomotive boats.
Yeah.
So, you have to outsource that stuff. And if you don't get a good person, you don't get a good company to do that for you. You're kind of at their, you're having to answer to them. And that was it with the E-Drive. I think it was a great product. It was a great idea, but they just couldn't deliver. Honestly, and then they couldn't service it when they did deliver. So.
Yeah, and when you think about it, who takes the black eye when something doesn't go right?
Of course, 100%. And ultimately, you have to own it because it doesn't matter. It's your name on the product. But I will say, when I left, that was a focus, was to try to figure out a way to bring that back to market. Now, I don't know if they ever will, or if they'll be able to find a good supplier for that. But I know that was, part of it was, how can we, because it was a cool and a unique,
Yeah.
idea for sure.
And I think with companies like Bixby and, obviously the Motor Guide Motors and all that, I think you're going to see. I could be completely wrong on this, but you're going to see a little bit more saturation, I think, on that market in the coming years. And I always kind of wondered if there was a place for it today. It's a cool product, absolutely, because you're starting to see other manufacturers kind of do the same thing. I know Feel Free kind of does an electronic assist on theirs, I believe, and I know that with the EPDL Plus, that's kind of like the new trendy kayak, if you will. But yeah, I mean, Bixby and even Hobie does the Evolve motor, where you just take the drive out. It's a motor that literally plugs into the same
Yeah,
plug-in
and
there.
that's a torpedo motor.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and so was what Wilderness Systems had for a bit. Was kind of the same thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I think that it's still, again, it was one of those things. It's like it came out kind of before its time, and then
Exactly. Yeah,
we weren't able to, you know, get it manufactured in a way that we could, like, continue it down the road,
yeah.
and that sucked. I mean, it really did.
Well, man,
That's another good question. I mean, again, this is the same. Like, I'm giving some insight here, and
yeah.
I don't work there anymore, so
Hey,
I
if you
can
got
share
any
on.
breaking news you want to break on the show here, I'm all for
I
it.
don't have any news because I'm not there anymore. But I will say, that is a point. So the Liska and the U pick, which you said
Yeah.
you had, and you look at that boat, you look at the Mayfly, the U pick, the
Mhm.
Liska, and ultimately what it boiled down to is we had several boats
Yeah.
that were very, very similar, and they were cannibalizing each
And
other.
they were within that relatively same price range
Yeah.
too.
Similar price
Yeah.
range. And so you look at that as a whole, and you go, okay, I've got a mold, and it's taking up this much oven time
Yeah.
to make that boat. And how many of those boats am I selling? And you go, well, I'm selling more U-Picks than I am Liskas right
Yeah.
now. And same thing with the Coosa. I mean, ultimately, eventually, boats start to taper off.
Mhm.
And it becomes this thing where during COVID, especially, you had to allocate oven time. You have so many ovens, and you've got to utilize that time because you could sell everything you made, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what am I gonna put in this oven? And so the hard decision came up, and it's like, whether or not you like that boat or you think that's the better boat or the best boat, which one is selling the
Yeah.
least?
The market was telling you what to do there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, well, U-Picks are outselling Liskas at the time,
But it's
Mhm.
and
cheaper.
we have to allocate the space in the oven.
Yeah.
So one of them has to go. And it's like, could we have chopped the Liska versus the U-Pick, or the U-Pick versus the Liska? Well, you make that decision based on
Yeah.
numbers, solely on numbers. And don't get me wrong, like at the time I would have been like, let's keep the Liska, let's keep the U-Pick, let's keep the Coosa HD, like
Yeah.
the big rig. A lot of people got upset when we canceled the big rig, but it was like, ultimately it's like, we only have so
Yeah.
much space in our ovens.
Yeah.
What is selling? We're gonna make what sells, and that's a hard decision.
Yeah.
It really is.
To me, and again, I'm saying this from a bigger guy's perspective, I actually preferred the Liska on the rivers to the Coosa.
Yeah, a lot of people did. A lot
And
of people.
I've always had kind of a weird memory, but I remember the pricing of everything in 2021, and I just remember the U pick at $12.99, and you had the Liska at $13.99, and then I believe the Coosa was $13.50. So when you look at the U pick,
They were all right there.
yeah, the U pick was big. The U pick I called like it's kind of the Bites bigger brother. Padded deck, same seat. You could trim it for. There's even some people that run tandems on it. They do. We do all kinds of weird stuff with that middle track, and
Yeah.
It's a great kayak. But I always told people, and of course I know the story behind the Liska, and it's got a great story. It's one of their best paddlers, and
Yeah.
it's just it's got kind of the open deck concept. You can remove the little the lid on the front end.
Cover.
Yeah, open it up, and it was so well done. And I always regretted that because I feel like a lot of people wasn't able to get into that kayak because there were so many kayaks and so many established kayaks in that price range there that it really kind of got overshadowed a little bit.
Well, that was the time frame for sure when, like I was talking about earlier in the video or in the live here, that the market got flooded. And so what's up, Jesse?
Yeah, see, we're sitting there talking about it. We got people out there fishing for redfish.
Yeah, no, Jesse's awesome. So he got to be actually on an episode. He got on the Jackson team. We got him on an episode of the show, and it was awesome. We had a great time. Did some snook fishing, and he's just a cool dude. He's fishing out of a blue sky, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's all the questions I got for you there, bud. We're just over the 1 hour. I know you got steaks cooking behind you. Would love to do this again, obviously.
A big hungry bearded man behind me.
Do they make them any other kind?
No, man.
I thought we had a good beard, but look at this thing.
Yeah, I got nothing on that. I got a little bit more time left on mine.
Yeah, he's on another level.
Mine's seasoned right. I got a little more. I got just as much salt in it, but I just got to get a little longer there.
Yeah.
Well, man, if you guys have not, those of you watching on the live and on the replay, if you haven't already, check out Jameson's YouTube channel, The Road Trip Angler. Does a lot of really cool stuff, fishing trips, reviews, off-road stuff. I definitely enjoy watching it. Jameson, thank you so much for coming by here today.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing some stuff with you here in the future. We'll do some more collaborations there, and it's always good to talk with good people there, buddy.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank y'all.
Absolutely, man. We'll talk to you later, bud.
See ya.
Bye.